Heresy Alpha, Book 1 of the Marian Imperium by Richard Warren. Chapter 9. Vadim. Like the snow on the palace roofs outside, fast melting in the morning sun, the girl's shift slid effortlessly onto the bedsheets. Vadim had hardly to pass his hand down her back, and her brassiere fell away too. He lay back in the soft cushions and sighed. Above him was an incomparable vision of loveliness. The soft northern light streamed through his chamber window, igniting 1,000 stars in Ganna's long golden tresses. As if its gilded rays were tipped with charcoal, it seemed intentionally to have shaded her chest so as to give it the impression of sculptured marble. He ran his hand across its contours, stiffening beneath the sheets. Her azure eyes were as clear as the Euxenic Sea. Not for the first time, he wondered how he would describe the beauty of Cossack women to one who knew only that of the south. Had not the Virgin made them in her own stainless image? With a Selkie's grace, Ganna slipped out of her undergarments. Vadim's hands descended the gentle undulation of her back to her slender waist, resting on the arc of her alabaster thighs as they locked themselves around him. Her mouth creased as she gripped him. A flush spread across her chest, like the crimson dawn over the mighty river outside. Her panting was like its incessant waves, rolling over him. He wanted to lose himself in that river, to drown himself forever in the golden lap of her embrace, to forget the world and himself. His hands caressed her white arms and the rose crowns of her chest, sliding down to her buttocks. She moaned as her fingers squeezed his broad shoulders, her flaxen hair brushing his face as her torrid body rose and fell against his. He pulled her closer, descending into oblivion as he sank into the gilded waves. Her soft lips kissed his ears. "My Korol," Ganna whispered in Novgorovian. "My king." Her words ran through him like ice. He awoke from his reverie, as if the river had spat him out upon its cold shore. His whole body went numb as her grip on him loosened. Her wide eyes looked down at him in alarm. "Ah!" Vadim said, shoving her aside. In a single bound, he leapt from the bed. He shook himself, running his hand through his jet-black hair as he moved to the window. "My prince, I didn't mean to," Ganna said, but Vadim raised his hand. Still undressed, she sat mournfully on the edge of the four-poster bed, her blonde braids hanging down over her penitent face. But the sight of all her pearly nakedness now left him cold. How carefree he had been but a moment before. His green eyes roved nervously over the medieval carving of the windowsill. Outside, the gilded domes of the Trinity churches sparkled like luminescent balloons as the last of the snow ran down their sides. By now, the sun had risen over the forked red castellations of the palace wall. The red berets of the royal guard were on their morning round, patrolling the parapet. They bobbed along beside the crenellations like candles on a cake, their white uniforms and polished rifles candescent in the dawn light. Beyond, on the far riverbank, the morning traffic glinted on the Electra highway. The city was coming to life, joyfully greeting the new day. If only he could share in that joy, but that could not be. Today was not a day for celebration, not for him. Ganna should have known better. "Never call me that," Vadim said. "You know how much I hate all that is false, Ganna." She raised her doe's eyes, which were wet with tears. How fair those Cossack eyes were, even in melancholy. "But you know you are my lord, my dear one," she said, "and today is a great day for you." He scowled, and she dropped her eyes demurely. "You know that today is not a happy day for me, Ganna," he said. She tied back her hair, exposing the dimpled peaks of her snowy chest. Catching Vadim admiring her, she smiled coyly, but a flash of light reflecting off the river distracted him. The light craft disappeared into the ether high above as its metallic shell shot up into the stratosphere, its ion fins already spreading like a giant diaphanous web. It was most likely heading south to the capital. He pictured the domes of Mariupol and tugged angrily at his long black hair. What use is there in being a stupid priest, Ganna? Is that all I'm worth? Is that all you think of me, even you? He eyed the soldiers on the rampart with envy. If only he could be one of them, to wear a uniform instead of an unmanly chlamys, and carry a rifle instead of a worthless sceptre. I am only a servant, my lord, and I do not know much of such things, she said, looking at her hands. But I know that it is your father's wish, and he will be proud of you today. Your father is a great man, and one day you will be too, my prince. Vadim laughed bitterly, shaking his head. Ganna blushed. My father? My father wants me to be a priest, yes, a useless sacerdote like him. What are they all even for? I mean, it's all just ceremony, just a sham, isn't it? And that's what my ordination will be today, a stupid sham. What's the point in pretending otherwise? He let off, seeing the alarm in Ganna's eyes. Oh, don't worry, Ganna, he said, moving back to the bed. I'm not going to do anything stupid. You know very well that I'll go through with it, as father wishes. Even mother wants me to do my duty. She thinks it'll advance me, the Virgin knows how. Her cornflower eyes made him forget what he'd been saying. Kissing her rubicund lips, he slipped his hand into her cleavage as her supple hands crept up his thigh. He threw her down onto the bed, lifting her legs against his chest as he entered her. He was soon drifting back into the river's golden embrace. There was a loud knock at the chamber door. Vadim cursed, rudely surfacing above the waves. Ganna looked up at him in terror, as if she thought the sparks from his eyes might catch in the wooden posters and set fire to the bed. He roared at the oak door, demanding to know who it was. "Yeta ya, Danilo, it is I," a sheepish voice replied in Novgorovian from the other side. "I am very sorry, my gospodin. I would not have disturbed you, only that Her Highness the Princess Eudoxia Casimirovna has requested the honour of your presence." Vadim's face fell. Ganna hastily gathered her clothes. "Vchadit," he commanded his valet to enter, already pulling on his hose. A gaunt man in his early 60s entered, bowing respectfully. He had a white beard and wore a red tunic emblazoned with a crowned double-headed silver eagle. He waved furtively at Ganna, who pulled on her shift and slipped out a door behind one of the tapestries. Its silken weave and gilt AURDXXX banner oscillated as the door closed, as if the Virgin's robe on Mariupol's walls and the magical tempest engulfing the Rus ships had come to life. Danilo watched nervously as it settled back over the hatch. "What on earth does mother want, old man?" Vadim asked, a stray black curl falling across his forehead as he shook his head angrily. "Ipriamo, tell me straight. You know how she is. What's she up to? The ceremony isn't for a few hours yet. Why does she need to see me now?" "My prince, you know that your presence is always a delight to your mother," Danilo said, with another bow. "Her Highness, the Lady Eudoxia, is, how to put it, Her Highness is concerned at your lack of enthusiasm for today's—" Yes, Danilo, I know mother isn't best pleased, but it's hardly news to her, and anyway, she knows I'll do what father wants," he said, but paused, noticing his valet studying the floor. "Wait, there's something else, isn't there? Come on, mój dorogoy człowiek, spit it out. What's mother up to?" "My gospodin, you know," Danilo said, peeking at the tapestry, "Her Highness, your mother, she does not, in view of the vow you are to take today, she does not approve of your liaison with your—" He desisted. An angry flush was suffusing his master's neck, like rose petals in milk. "Chert," Vadim swore. "Isn't it bad enough that I have to go through with this stupid ordination as it is? Is mother determined to spoil my happiness entirely?" He slammed his large fists into the wardrobe, and one of its hinges snapped. Danilo continued to study the floorboards. By now, the sky was dappled with the diaphanous fins of several other light craft, floating like giant jellyfish on the surface of the sea. The red berets gestured as they patrolled the parapet. He yearned to be free. Their mothers hardly told them which women they could have. He was a prince, but what was that worth when he wasn't even his own master? "Tell mother I'm coming," he said at last, shaking his head in resignation. Danilo bowed his head and turned to leave. "And Danilo, if you'd be so kind," he added, as the floorboards creaked beneath his valet's feet. "Not a word about this to mother, please." He waved his hand at the shipwrecked tapestry. Danilo bowed again and slipped out the door. Half an hour later, Vadim stepped into a high-ceilinged room on the other side of the palace, two servants in the same livery as Danilo bowing as he entered. His hair was lacquered in a side parting, and in place of his night robe he wore a black tunic embroidered with a golden double-headed eagle and star. On his finger was a silver ring with the same eagle, but topped instead with a crown. A tall, blonde, middle-aged woman stood on the far side of the long gallery, gazing out of a high window. She wore a dappled black and gold kirtle dress with a high rough neck. On her head was a small diadem, from whose sides ivory beads hung down to her shoulders. Behind her, the city spires sparkled like glass baubles in the matinal sun. Gold, stucco and Nubian ivory covered the entire gallery, depicting double-headed eagles, crowns and stars. Spanning the ceiling was a giant map, divided into 4 quadrants, each marked by a heraldic shield, with the legends Eboracum caput boreale, Ravenna caput occidentale, Castra Kremlovska caput orientale, and Urbs Sancta caput australe, the last animated by an iridescent light. A vast mosaic on the right-hand wall showed a medieval army kneeling in a yellow field beneath a wide blue sky. The heads of all were bowed, their hands placed solemnly on their chests. Their swords and spears lay before them, glittering in the easterval sun like a great moonlit lake. In the centre was a young woman in a chiton on a rearing white steed, her cascading black curls framed in a solar halo as she smiled down at the men. Before her horse's hooves, a man in a purple robe and an astrakhan fur cap knelt as he offered up a golden crown with both hands. Over the mosaic was the inscription Anno Descensionis XXV Princeps Ivanus in Campo Marianeo Coronam Redit. Upon the field of Mary, Grand Prince Ivan gave back his crown, Vadim read aloud. The woman turned, breaking into a broad smile as her keen green eyes surveyed Vadim from head to toe. He inclined his head. "I have always thought you had his eyes," she said. "You have your father's hair, but that is all. Otherwise, you have always been one of us, the very image of our sire." She glanced up at the kneeling man in the mosaic, then greedily took in Vadim's face. "My son," the woman said, offering her hand as Vadim approached. He knelt and kissed the silver ring on her finger, which bore the same insignia as his own. She embraced him tightly, then held him at arm's length as she looked solicitously into his eyes. For some time they stood together in silence, looking out at the colossal towers of Castra Kremlovska in the distance. Its glass facades rose to the sky like icicles, as if threatening to melt in the sharp northern light, while thousands of little lights flitted about at their feet like fireflies on a summer night. Vadim's eyes dropped to the red brick of the ramparts below, where his quarters were. Ganna would already be down there somewhere in the servants' quarters, doubtless being riled by the other girls. The thought irritated him, and he grimaced. His mother gave him a sidelong glance, and the corners of her handsome mouth turned down. "Today is a very special day for you, Vadim. Your father and I are very proud of you. I do hope you know that," she asked. Vadim did not return her gaze, but went on studying the palace wall. He could just make out the smart crimson berets lining the parapet below. He fingered his ring irritably. "It is a great honour to take the orders," she continued. "You know what that means to your father and to me. And, as is your due, you will take them in our most holy church of the Ascension, in that church which is, perhaps, most hallowed of all among our people, beneath our most beloved image of the Mother of Kazan. You know, Vadim, We've been waiting for this day since you were born." "Why do you say these things, mother?" Vadim said, his cheeks flushing. "I know it matters to you, but you know how I feel about it. Does that even come into it?" His eyes rested for a moment on Grand Prince Ivan, and he pressed his ring again. "Besides, I'm no eunuch priest, mother," he added, looking bitterly at his quarters below. "You know Our Lady didn't make me that way." Eudoxia's eyes followed his. Her shapely lips became pursed, and her hands moved to her slender hips. "And you, Vadim, know what I feel about this, though it pains me to say it," she said, waving her hand at the window, "about this cavorting about, and not just that, but cavorting with such a lowborn." "Mother," Vadim said, "I am not a child. Why must you insist on treating me like one? If I really must go through with all this ceremony, may I not at least have some life of my own? Am I not a prince? May I not do as I please with my own servants?" "U prince jest obiazanosti," she said, switching from Greek to Novgorodian. "A prince has responsibilities, Vadim. For Justinia's sake, you are the Empress's nephew. Have you forgotten that? And not just that, you are my only son, the heir to the Novgorodian line. You will do your duty, my son, because you must." She straightened up, adjusting her diadem. "You know I will do my duty, mother," Vadim replied. "But I am my own man too, as the men of our family have always been. Would you have me otherwise?" His wrath abated, his eyes almost pleading now. For a long time, Eudoxia only stared at Castrokremlovska's skyline in silence. To his surprise, when she faced him again, there were tears in her eyes. A radiant smile rose to her high cheekbones. "No, Vadim, I would have you as you are," she said, gazing into his eyes. "I know you will do your duty, but I also know you are one of us. You have always been. You know, you are so much the image of your grandfather." She cupped his alabaster cheeks with her long hands. Vadim smiled weakly. "You know I only wish you happiness, my son," Eudoxia continued. "A sacerdote needn't be a eunuch, after all, even if some do choose that dedication to Our Lady. But he must at least remain chaste until he marries, as you will, and soon, if you so wish. Besides, Vadim, you are a royal. Your reputation, our reputation, matters." The cleft between Vadim's brows reappeared. He tried to twist free, but Eudoxia held him firmly. "So I shall say nothing further about this Cossack girl," she said, looking at him meaningfully, "and, if I hear nothing more about it, then I shall rest assured no one else has. All I ask is that you remember who you are, and that in time you must wed. I do not wish you to get hurt." She broke away and moved to a large mahogany table beneath the mosaic. The hem of her black kirtle swept the marble floor, its golden threads glittering like Ganna's hair. "You must understand, Vadim, that our fortunes are not what they were," she said, distractedly tracing the silver coronal inlay of the table. "Yes, the dignity of our house is not what it once was, and can no longer be taken for granted. We do not enjoy the offices we once did, and our voice no longer carries at the sublime port as it did in your grandfather's day. We must protect it however we can. We, my son, must guard our house's honour. It is up to us." "But then why do you insist on my joining the sacerdotal order?" he said, his dark eyebrows arching. "I do not understand what good I can do for us as a sacerdote. Is that really an honour worthy of our house? Look at what happened to cousin Anastasia." "You are right, Vadim. What happened to your cousin at the Saturnal was a disgrace," Eudoxia said, her jade eyes glowing with ire. "To think, a Vestal treated so shamelessly by a pleb. It would never have happened in your grandfather's day. Your aunt raised it with the Empress at the time. That useless little Syrian ought never to have been made a governor, even in a backwater like Caledon." "And am I not to expect similar, or worse, contempt once I am a sacerdote?" Vadim said. "By the advantage of her sex, cousin Anastasia holds the high Vestal office, with its attendant privilege, but I shall be a mere priest. Honestly, mother, what can I expect but to face still greater dishonour?" Shall I not be defenceless then to protect us? Listen, Vadim, Eudoxia said, returning to his side and placing her hand on his shoulder. No son of mine shall ever face such dishonour. No, we are the House of Novgorod, and we look after our own. Nor does an insult to the imperial family ever go unpunished. You will see. Anastasia's shame shall not be unavenged. But this is also the reason why you must do your duty. The sacerdotal office advances you in the eyes of Our Lady, and so too in the royal esteem. And it is by that esteem alone, by the grace of your aunt, Her Imperial Majesty Theodosia, that our house shall retain honour. Do you understand, Vadim? Yes, mother, he replied slowly. I understand. Eudoxia's bejewelled fingers gripped him tightly by both shoulders, scrying his features like runes. Unable to escape, he averted his eyes. She pressed him to her chest, stroking his hair. A clop of heels resounded around the long walls. They looked up. A footman in red and gold livery stood in the doorway. Moja Koroleva, Mój Prince, it is time, the man said, bowing low. Eudoxia nodded, and the servant withdrew, walking backwards. A shiver ran down Vadim's spine. He disengaged from Eudoxia's embrace, eyeing the mosaic. She only smiled and, placing her palm on his back, gestured him towards the door.